Yeah.
Perfect. So, welcome everyone to our Adaptation for Communities Lunchtime Learning session. I'm really happy you could join us. Just to say, these sessions are part of our ongoing climate leadership program, which is designed to share practical skills, leadership skills, and place-based learning and inspiration. So today we're joined by our expert speaker, Natalie from Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park, who'll be sharing around Loch Lomond Rainforest and helping us to explore solutions in Forth Valley setting, which helps us all better understand how climate adaptation can work in our own communities and spaces. I'm Steffi. I'm joined by Isabella from FEL Scotland. Very happy to be co-hosting the session with you today. Also, just to say, these sessions are just one part of our broader work as Forth Valley's Climate Action Hub. So through this series, we're aiming to raise awareness of achievable climate actions in our region and also shine a light on some of the incredible work already happening in our communities. So today's focus is on preserving our landscapes, and we're excited to hear from Natalie. So feel free to take us away, Natalie.
Cool, thank you. Um, what I will do also is just feel free to let me know if you want me to hurry up if time is kind of, if I'm dragging on a bit
Oh,
because
don't worry. You're our
I'm
only speaker
trying to,
today, so you've got the
yeah,
pleasure
because
of that.
I was running through things and just thought, gosh, I've actually said more than I thought was going to. So, yeah, I'll keep an eye on the time. But yeah, thank you. I'm Natalie. So I work for Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park Authority. I've been in the role for coming up, well, yeah, just pretty much bang on 2 years now. And I work in the nature and land use team. My job title is project management advisor, but basically I manage the sort of scoping, development, and delivery phases of nature restoration projects. And mainly that is landscape scale nature restoration projects, of which the rainforest is the main one that I'm focusing on at the moment. But I also support Welsh Strathfillan, which Kelly, I think, will probably remember from her previous role. So, but today I will talk about Loch Lomond Rainforest. Let's do the screen sharing. Hopefully this works. Um, right, presentation mode. Uh, if you can give me a nod, Steffi, if you can see that.
Yeah, perfect.
Amazing. Right. I'm going to minimize you so I can't actually see anyone. So um just shout if you need me to explain anything. Oh, it says two people are in the waiting room.
Fine, we'll sort that out.
I will just crack on then. Yeah, so Loch Lomond's Rainforest is one of our landscape scale initiatives, along with Welsh Strathfillan, as I mentioned, and the Great Trossachs Forest, which you may also have heard of. These three landscape scale initiatives sit under Future Nature, which is the national park's kind of biodiversity strategy, really. Um, I don't know if you remember Wild Park, I think, was our previous biodiversity strategy. We launched Future Nature about 2 years ago, just before I started, and it provides a route map for how the national park works together um, to deliver biodiversity improvements and nature restoration projects, and really how we work towards our objectives of halting biodiversity loss by 2030 and ensuring widespread restoration by nature restoration by 2040. So Loch Lomond Rainforest fits into that future nature strategy. And today I wanted to give you a presentation basically on the project, but I was trying to relate it to, well, trying to think what might be useful for you to hear about. So I've sort of tried to frame it in project management terms, so how you can think about managing your own projects, and hopefully you can take some lessons learned and maybe transfer some of the approaches that we've used in this project to your own work. Right, let me see if I can actually, there we go. So, you're probably aware of Scotland's rainforest, but just in case any of you aren't, or if anyone's watching this later and isn't aware, Scotland has a rainforest. So we're taught, from a very young age all about tropical rainforest and saving the Amazon, which is, really important, a spectacularly biodiverse place. I've never been, would love to, but that's tropical rainforest, and we have temperate rainforest, which is woodlands and rainforest habitat that is in the kind of northern and southern areas of the globe. So those, the places that are highlighted in green on that map are places where the conditions are right for rainforest habitat to exist. Less than 1% of the Earth's surface has the environmental conditions and climatic conditions suitable for temperate rainforest habitat to exist. So a really tiny part of the Earth's surface, and Scotland happens to have some of that habitat, and some great examples of that habitat along its west coast. The climatic factors that enable that rainforest habitat to thrive are basically fairly consistently mild temperatures throughout the year and a rainfall. So, it's places where you've got kind of mild-ish winters, doesn't get too cold, kind of warm-ish summers, doesn't get that warm, and rains most of the time. So Scotland is pretty much bang on that kind of habitat and kind of climate. And then the actual rainforest habitat itself, it's obviously characterized by trees, but it's really not the trees that are the sort of unique bit. It's really the bryophytes, mosses, liverworts, and also lichens. And it's that diversity of those species that are indicative of a rainforest habitat, but also things like glades, boulders, ravines, really kind of humid, wet habitat features, waterfalls, rivers. That kind of thing is also things like standing deadwood, lying deadwood, old veteran trees. You get the idea. You've probably been to Scottish Rainforest, either knowingly or not. So that's what temperate rainforest is like. And then within Scotland, we've got not a huge amount left. We've got about 30,000 hectares of rainforest habitat within Scotland. I'm not too sure of what the figure is of what it was or what it could be, given sensitive management. But I do know that 7% of that 30,000 hectares is within the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park, most of it around Loch Lomond. So we're very aware of the duty that we have to protect that environment or that habitat, which is what this initiative is all about. So Loch Lomond Rainforest, I'm kind of, in terms of sort of project management, we're trying to sort of not call it a project because Loch Lomond Rainforest itself isn't really a project. Projects, I've been on some rather intense project management training, and projects have, like a start and a finish and particular objectives and all this kind of stuff. Loch Lomond Rainforest is more sort of an initiative or a concept or a vision for which we will encourage land managers and landowners to hang their projects on, if you see what I mean. It's kind of like a hook, but calling it an initiative, and then underneath that we will be developing and delivering restoration projects. The Alliance for Scotland's Rainforest, you may know about, you may not. They are they're a group of voluntary organisations basically that have come together to, there's another person. I'll just press submit. that have come together to restore Scotland's rainforest. The Alliance for Scotland's Rainforest isn't in itself an actual organisation, but it does have, so Plant Life host the programme manager. That's somebody called Julie Stoneman, who's really been an amazing driving force behind ASR. And then the Woodland Trust is the other kind of partner that funds a lot of ASR's work and projects, and Plant Life and the Woodland Trust are the main kind of organisations, and then there's many organisations that sit on working groups that deliver projects. So Loch Lomond Rainforest has been adopted by ASR as one of their focus projects, and you can have a look at their website. They've got loads of really amazing resources on there for rainforest restoration. So in terms of where it is, I put these two maps on. The map on the left is from, I think it's from our Future Nature route map, I think. So we've got the dark brown, so these three shapes, well, that's the national park, first of all, is the boundary, and then the three coloured areas are the three landscape scale initiative areas that are kind of happening at the moment. So we've got the dark brown is established Great Trossachs forest. Dark green is the delivering Wildstrath Fillen. That boundary has changed actually a little bit. And then the lighter green, limey green area is Loch Lomond Rainforest, which is in development. And then the map on the right just kind of shows you Loch Lomond's rainforest a bit just a bit of a clearer outline there. And I also put that map just because, I should have put the catchment area of the Forth on. That would have been good. I didn't think of that. You can see the Forth River and obviously the source of it. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of the geographical relationship between the Forth catchment area and your sort of delivery area and the rainforest initiative area. And I was thinking, positive impacts that we have within Loch Lomond Rainforest will very likely have positive impacts on that kind of source area of the Forth, particularly I'm thinking deer management, but it will be interesting to see over time the kind of interactions between the rainforest area and the Forth area. So just a bit about why Loch Lomond's rainforest, and also rainforest in habitat, temperate rainforest habitat in general, why is it important? As I mentioned, with it being occurring in less than 1% of the Earth's surface, it's obviously a very rare and unique habitat. And then when you think about that sort of version of temperate rainforest habitat within Scotland, it's even more unique, right? Because we've got woodland habitats that we only find in Scotland, like Caledonian pine forest, or at least remnants of the Caledonian pine forest. We've actually got two remaining compartments of Caledonian pine forest, the two most southerly extents of Caledonian pine forest within the Loch Lomond Rainforest Initiative area. And so that's quite special, really, because they sit within the rainforest zone. They're ecologically distinct from the pine forest you get further east. And then temperate rainforest supports all sorts of really rare species. So, for example, if you've heard of the checkered skipper butterfly, that's I've never seen it myself. We don't have it in Loch Lomond, mainly because we don't have its really niche habitat, which is the transition habitat that you get where temperate rainforest meets grassland. It's rare and unique and supports a whole range of rare and generalist species. But it's also really important, obviously, climate change mitigation, as all woodlands are. It's also a source of jobs and income, woodland management roles. Also, things like tourism roles. The woodlands and temperate rainforest is great for tourism, and so provides people roles within that sector. There's a huge amount of research showing, really conclusively that natural spaces, including woodlands and temperate rainforest, are really important for our health and well-being. And that's understood pretty well now. But also education and volunteering opportunities that temperate rainforest can provide really helps to send that message to people of how important rainforest habitat is, and helps to create that sense of ownership, which is so important when we're trying to protect and restore this habitat. Why is it under threat? So these threats are shared threats across the whole kind of temperate rainforest area, but also not just temperate rainforest. I mean, these are threats really for most habitats across Scotland. The main ones that we have within the national park, grazing pressure. So we have a lot of deer, and we have a lot of sheep, and we have some goats, and we work with land managers to get a balance right, so that we're not getting too much grazing happening in one area and not enough grazing happening in another area, for example. So, I mean, the main reason for this is that our deer are eating baby trees, basically. So we're not getting the natural regeneration that we need to make sure that the temperate rainforest continues to thrive and exist. Invasive species. So the temperate rainforest that we do have in Loch Lomond is largely choked with rhododendron. So we have got a strategy. We've just recently, I'm not sure if it's out in the public yet, but we've recently had an ecological consultancy pull together a rhododendron strategy for us. So that will be available soon. If anyone's interested, let me know. Plantation woodland is another. Sorry, I should just say about rhododendron. The main issue with rhododendron is that it grows really well, and basically it just stops anything else growing. It stops light getting through. It stops young saplings being able to establish. Plantation woodland. I've put it as a threat, but really I should clarify. Plantation woodland is needed for our economy, and it's culturally a really important thing. So I should maybe just change that wording. So the plantation woodland itself isn't really a threat. It's the thing is that once it's planted, it's generally non-native Sitka, which doesn't stay where it's supposed to, and it's the self-seeded stuff that's coming up in native woodlands that is that we need to manage. Pests and diseases is another threat. So we've got ash dieback. I think that's probably the main one that is relevant to temperate rainforests at the moment that I know of anyway. And then obviously climate change. I mean, I've not seen any research that shows what the potential impacts will be to temperate rainforest habitat with the changing climate. So bit of an unknown and a bit of a risk. So in terms of what we can do, we've got an aim. So the aim for this rainforest initiative is to establish a well-connected temperate rainforest habitat. I mean, that's a really kind of top-level aim within the national park. And we want to do this by addressing the threats that I just went through. So the main kind of focus is removing rhododendron and establishing the right level of herbivore grazing pressures. And if we can get that right, then in most locations we will hopefully see natural regeneration. But in some areas, I'm fully aware we may not see natural regen, even if we do remove the threats of rhodie and herbivores, just because there isn't existing seed source. I mean, over time, you would get natural regeneration, but who knows how long that could take. So, well, I'm sure there is some research done that shows how long it could take. But to give things a helping hand in places where you might not see natural regeneration for 100 years or so, we will look at planting trees. In addition to those kinds of on the ground things, establishing and retaining a local contractor base is really important. At the moment, most things like contractors that do roadie removal or do fencing or do tree planting are kind of out with the national park. We're having to bring people in, particularly for areas where we're doing projects that are quite remote, and there's all sorts of logistical issues with that. So establishing a local contractor base is something that we're looking into as a kind of project. Maybe we can support training, maybe we can give funding, that kind of thing. And then creating volunteering opportunities, as I've mentioned already. We're looking at we do a lot of volunteering already in the National Park Authority, but creating volunteering opportunities specific to rainforest restoration will help to develop that sense of ownership between the habitat and local communities. And that goes also for education programs to help inform local communities, any other opportunities to engage visitors as well, visitors locally, but also visitors from the rest of Scotland, and also other countries too. And then the last one I've put there is about green financing. I am definitely no expert on green financing. Every time I try and read about it and learn about it, I get more confused. So we do have an FAQ information pack on green financing within the national park. If anyone's interested in that, let me know. But the sort of things we have been looking at and what colleagues have been looking at are things like woodland carbon code and peatland carbon code, things like philanthropy, investment from private organisations, and looking at new, more sustainable local business models. For example, venison is something that we're looking at that could generate some income for the local area, basically. So in terms of what and who will this benefit, which I think is always really important when thinking about your project and outcomes. Who is this going to benefit? Obviously, nature is a big one for doing a rainforest restoration project. Delivering restoration for habitats means that we are helping species. So benefit species directly, but not only will it benefit nature, it will benefit people. And that's a really strong message that we want to get across when we're talking about our rainforest restoration projects. So, indirectly delivering for nature does deliver for people, because without it, we will experience ecosystem collapse. But more directly, climate change mitigation is obviously incredibly important for people. And then things like this, developing this local contractor base could generate jobs. It is, the temperate rainforest is an amazing recreational asset. We've got a good statistic is the national park, Loch Lomond National Park, is within an hour's journey of more than 50% of Scotland's population. So, we've got this asset that most people in Scotland can access within an hour, which is fantastic. Also, obviously, that brings some tourism or visitor pressures that we need to manage. But what a great way to engage people about rainforests and rainforest restoration. And it'll also, there's then opportunities that restoring this rainforest will create for volunteers and education at all ages. This is kind of more about the sort of project management bit, which hopefully you can take some learning from. The first phase that we did was a scoping phase. That started in May 2023, and the first piece of work we did was we appointed Gordon Gray-Stevens, who many of you may know. He's a prominent figure in rainforest restoration. He's an expert in rainforest restoration, and he's got his own consultancy as well, of which I forget the name now. But he did this really high level first piece of work that pulled together policy drivers for an initiative like this. And he also provided us with these kind of flagship actions and deliverables that we then use to identify our aspirations. After that, we had a bit of funding. The Gordon Gray-Stevens report was internally funded. The land use consultants report, so this next phase of scoping that we did was also internally funded from our National Park Authority core funding. But we did a tender process and appointed land use consultants to undertake a more detailed scoping exercise and a stakeholder engagement exercise as well. So they started that in September 2023, and the piece of work they did was really it really drove forward the project in a big way, which was great. They did a lot of GIS desk-based analysis where they pulled together existing data to identify areas within the initiative area that are likely to have rainforest habitat within them, and they gave us they recommended basically which sites we should go and ground truth and when, so a kind of phased approach. They also did stakeholder engagement. Mainly they talked to most of the landowners and managers within the initiative area, so that's private landowners and managers, as well as the likes of RSPB Scotland, National Trust for Scotland, Strathfillan Community Development Trust, Cashel Forest. So lots of different land managers around the Loch, and they also facilitated 2 public consultation events, both online webinars, one at lunchtime and one in the evening. That work that they did was brilliant. Really enjoyed working with them and with Gordon as well, I should say. Working with both of those consultants has been exceptionally helpful. Once they produced that report, I then used that report to pull together an application form for NRF funding. So Scottish Government's Nature Restoration Fund, which is administered by Nature Scot. I have to say that because that's part of the condition of getting the funding. So they awarded us, it was about £90,000 they awarded us to undertake ground truthing surveys and further development work, basically. So we did another tender process in May this year, and RSK Biocensus won that contract, and they are currently out in the field now. Maybe not today, but they've been out the last few weeks, and will continue to be out, going to various sites around Loch Lomond to assess for rainforest habitat and its condition. They're using a methodology called the Rapid Rainforest Assessment, which is an ASR, Alliance for Scotland's Rainforest methodology. It's fantastic. I love it. I'm totally obsessed with this assessment methodology because it's so clear to follow. It's designed so that a land manager without much knowledge of species can do the assessment themselves. But it also, if you're an expert in bryophytes, which I'm not, you can add your own flair to the methodology. So they're undertaking those surveys, and we will get habitat management plans and the results of those surveys in the next few months. In terms of what are the next steps, we'll continue with this development phase. So as I said, continue working with the consultants, RSK Biocensus, to develop habitat management plans for selected sites. We have recently, the National Park Authority, in partnership with RSPB Scotland and the Loch, Lomond and Trossachs Countryside Trust, have put in a bid to the National Lottery Heritage Fund Landscape Connections for £10 million to deliver nature restoration, focusing on the sort of north part of I should have put a map, but the north part of the national park. Sort of, if you can imagine that the three existing initiatives that we have, Wild Stratfillan, the Great Trossachs Forest, and Loch Lomond Rainforest, where they all overlap in that sort of northern area, that's where we would like to focus kind of capital delivery of that 10 million, but with the impacts of that project and the sort of embedding kind of systemic change, we call it, across the three landscapes. We'll find out if we have been successful in December for that fund. So if we are, some of that funding will be directly being funneled into rainforest restoration. I put governance there just to remind myself to say that Loch Lomond Rainforest, governance is really important for initiatives and projects, but for this Loch Lomond Rainforest initiative, we're kind of trying to keep it quite governance light at the moment, just because much of the landowners and land managers that will be involved in this initiative, are already sitting on, for example, Wild Stratfillan or the Great Trossachs Forest, or are just getting like governance fatigue from whatever projects they're in. So we're trying to get a balance, making sure that there is governance, but not having it to be too onerous. The pilot delivery that I put there is, so you may be aware that Nature Scot are doing another round of NRF funding at the moment. There's a deadline for expression of interests for that fund by the 8th of September. So I'm working on an expression of interest to get some delivery phase funding for a project yet to be decided, but will be informed by the results of the surveys that are currently being undertaken. I'm going to write that EOI this week. It'll be in by September the 8th, and then the actual deadline for the full application is in November. And then in terms of stakeholder engagement, I just wanted to mention that it's just ongoing, basically. Stakeholder engagement is something that we do all the time. It's really probably the most important thing that we do. So we will be engaging with landowners and land managers on the rainforest initiative, but in particularly deer management groups will be really important, local communities, and just continually scoping out other stakeholders will be a big part of what next steps are. I think that is the presentation. So I just put, I can give you my personal email address, or there's that futurenature@lochlomond-trossachs.org is like our general inbox. So that might just be handy for you to have, or if you've got any questions, hopefully I can answer them now. I'm just going to stop sharing and hopefully see everyone's still there. Yes.
Thanks so much, Natalie. Thank you for giving so much detail and just being really transparent about the whole project. It's really, really interesting just to see your process and where you're at with it as well. Is there anyone here who'd like to ask a question, or if you prefer putting it in the chat at all? Kelly?
Yeah, hi there. I just the one question I was wanting to ask. There's been quite a few communities sort of across, I was going to say the national park, but across the Stirling area that are kind of coming together to look at how they can work in partnership to develop sort of climate action. So we've got sort of one that's up southwest Scotland and then one up in the northwest, which includes like Stratfillan and Clen and places like that. And one of the, so we've been doing some, so I've been sort of part of the McLaren Communities Futures group that's there, and one of the things we've been doing is going out and speaking to communities and seeing what their priorities are, and nature restoration is quite highly up there. And so how do you have any sort of suggestions or recommendations how these communities can kind of, I don't know, get the ball rolling in sort of nature corridors and nature restoration, and that kind of thing. I mean, is looking at something like getting consultants in or that kind of thing the first thing to do? It's just how do we kind of get going on it, I suppose, of having these ambitions, but where do we start, I suppose?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I know, I mean, I don't work directly with community groups myself really, but I do know how difficult it is. And just from the sort of my involvement with Wild Strathfillan and working with the Countryside Trust and understand the kind of struggles they have with trying to support local community groups to get things going. I mean, I think funding is a big issue, and I didn't say on the presentation there, but annual funding cycles is something that we all have to work with, and I think that community groups having to kind of navigate that funding arena and having to work with annual funding is very difficult. But I think applying for funding is obviously one of the first things that community groups probably need to do to be able to actually develop and deliver stuff on the ground. And getting funding to actually get someone in post as well. I like, the Strathfillan Community Development Trust have got a couple of people in post, but it's, there's only 2 of them, I think, that are actually paid. And I'm amazed at how much work they get done with, just a couple of people. But I think trying to get people in post with funding is really important. I mean, if there's ways to try and get funding something that we are trying to do in the park and looking into in the park is this green financing where we get more sustainable funding and long-term funding so that jobs don't just come to an end at the end of the year. Having conversations with local community groups about trying to get more sustainable funding options is something that I'd probably be doing. I think the other thing is getting the word out there and communicating and that kind of thing. Getting people inspired and getting them involved is really key. That's something also that Wild Strathfillan are trying to do and is really difficult. They've had a few community events, but not, the same people come, which is great, but there's only like 5 of them. And whilst they definitely want to hold on to those 5 people, trying to get the message out wider is difficult. So we're looking at things like putting a board up in the doctor's surgery or, dentists, or having webinars actually was something that I suggested might be a good shout. So advertising in local spaces and local newspapers, but also I think speaking to those people who are already engaged, what made them become engaged and why are they doing it? Maybe lessons can be taken from them. I'm trying to think also in terms of practical stuff. I mean, there's lots of organisations, like TCV, they're a good organisation to get involved in working with local communities. There's probably other examples like that I'm not aware of that would have more specialist expertise in how to get communities involved. I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes, no, that's grand. Thank you. It's a bit food for thought. Thank you. Cheers, Natalie.
No worries.
I've got a wee question here as well. Wondering about opportunities for voluntourism and/or rainforest experiences, and if engaging visitor in nature restoration is part of the plan. And then a comment about venison as well. So the ideas about sourcing venison as well from a local food.
Yeah. Have you heard that before? Voluntourism. That's great. I could use that.
We need to copyright the phrase.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and of engaging visitors in definitely part of the plan. So this lottery bid that we've put in, this £10 million in partnership with the Countryside Trust and RSPB, there's a whole work stream that we want to get funded around engagement. So there will be a dedicated, if we get the funding, there will be a dedicated project on engaging people with not just rainforest actually, but with nature restoration more generally. There's also going to be a dedicated project on it's called Nature Roots, and that's what we're calling it at the moment, and that is more about access to these spaces, which is also part of that visitor engagement. So there will be that will be a big part of what we do, because without it, I mean, it's not going to work. We need to be engaging people, right, to get the messages out there. Voluntourism, I will absolutely put that term to my colleagues. That's a good term. And then very passionate about Scotland eats more venison, wondering about any ideas you have for how the park can engage. Yeah, it's something, again, that is also on our radar. Part of this lottery bid, we will also, if we get funding, have a venison project. So part of that during the development phase, we'll be getting a consultant to come in and look at the venison projects that already exist across Scotland, because there are quite a few already. I mean, there's so many different, venison's got really popular quite recently in terms of projects, and there's lots of different models out there, and some of them, like there's the community model, there's private business model, there's something in between both. There's definitely scope for a project there. The Park Authority and the Countryside Trust separately commissioned 2 separate pieces of venison work, where we had a consultant come in and look at Welsh Strathfillan as a potential venison project more locally, and then a venison project across the national park more widely. And the findings that consultant spoke to a lot of people. It was really interesting, actually. Some butchers are really up for having more venison, and some were just not that interested, which was quite interesting. Some hospitality businesses also really interested, and others just not at all. So we need to do more work on understanding what the market is and what the routes to market are, and how we go about doing things like getting venison on the menu at care homes and at schools and at hospitals and that kind of thing. So if you're interested to know more, I can talk more about venison. But one of my colleagues, she's in my team, she works as she's a land use advisor, and she's focusing a lot of her role is on herbivores and venison specifically. And we've just, Nature Scott, I think, funded a mobile chiller or a mobile larder, and also a mobile processing unit. So there's a couple of projects going on for venison, which actually is along East Loch Lomond, which is right next to the Fourth Environment Link kind of area.
Thank you. I was wondering as well, Natalie, just, I know you're sort of near the start of the journey, but I can imagine a lot of our communities, outside of the park would be really, really inspired to visit. Are there any points of the forest at the moment that you would recommend as a good point that are accessible through a walk, or would it be a certain visitor centre or anything to come and find out more, or just even see the environment?
I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, because I need to take some people to see some rainforest. And I would say the best place is probably, the Inversnaid RSPB site.
Yeah.
That's a good location because, you've got facilities there. And if you walk from the Inversnaid, well, basically that hotel or wherever the actual RSPB car park is, walk north along the West Highland Way. The further you go, the more rainforesty it gets. And if you go right to the end of the RSPB reserve along the West Highland Way, that's where you start to get really good example of rainforest habitat. I think that's probably the best location for an accessible experience without having to trudge up a hill on no path or something.
Yeah, definitely the route I would prefer. Thank you, that's really helpful. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to ask or no? Or anything you're looking for, Natalie, from sort of a collective of people working in community groups in the area when it comes to your engagement phase? I'm not sure what that would look like, but certainly the climate action hubs and team and can maybe help connect you in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we find out, hopefully, that we've got this funding, I'm hoping that's going to kickstart stuff, And at that point, I think it could be really useful for my like communities colleagues to link into your approaches and take some learning from what you do. And that would be really useful. So it'd be great to keep in touch.
Great, thank you. And just as well with volunteering, I know that we have a food and growing project working in Falkirk, looking at volunteering capacities and things. But also, I think generally speaking, we do get asked a lot about practical activities to do with nature and volunteering, and also probably a bit of the citizen science. So, likely again, if there's anything that links to your project around that, um, you know, I think we would have some people to signpost on the
Yeah,
topic.
that would be great. I mean, just one thing off the top of my head. I'm trying to look at a fixed point photography project. I don't know if that's something that you or anyone has done. We're trying to, well, maybe try and find historic photos around the project area to, what things used to look like, and then go and take photographs now and then take photographs, as the project sort of goes, so we can visually see the impact. And that actually, Dundregan Estate up in Loch, further the Loch at Glenafric, is it? Anyway, up there, they have, and I'm sure other places as well, they've got this citizen science project where they've got a little like stump thingy, and you put your phone on the top of this, and then you take a photograph just as a member of the public, and then scan a code and send that photograph to whatever inbox. And that's a really nice citizen science. Well, we've not tried it, but I think that would be a really nice citizen science project for
Definitely.
photography.
That sounds really good and really simple. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have any ideas, or if you've done that, or if you know anyone who's done that, then let me know.
We'll have a think. Yeah, certainly. Well, I'll let you go because you have. Thank you for doing so well and talking for a whole session as well.
Don't worry, it's a good thing there was no one else, eh?
Again, really, really appreciate how much detail you went into and sharing all the maps and things. Super helpful and really motivating and positive to know such a big project is underway around conservation as well. So thank you so much. And yeah, thank you to everyone for joining. Just for the recording's sake and things as well, to signpost you to our free FEL Scotland membership. One of the benefits being it sort of keeps you up to date with our upcoming events, grant funds.
I'm guessing that's a frozen screen.
Frozen.
Oh.
Yes. Just at the end. Never mind. Anyway, please do go to our free FEL Scotland membership and take a look. But hopefully see you for our next sessions. We have one on volunteering with social farms and gardens on the 3rd of September. And then we're looking at adapting our homes and buildings with 2 speakers on the 10th, and that's with Sterling Heritage Trust and our local action group, Southwest Sterling Climate Action Network. So hopefully catch you then. Yes, thanks everyone.